welcome everyone. I'm Tal Henrik in New York for All Israel News. And today I am thrilled to welcome two spectacular individuals coming to us from the Middle East. One is an Israeli, the other is an Emirati. And together they have made history earlier this year when they lit the torch of remembrance in the Auschwitz death camp in Poland. Ahmed Obaid Almansoori is a former member of the UAE Federal National Council. He nowadays promotes peace and coexistence in his initiatives in the region. Eitan Neishlos is an emerging leader in the Jewish world and the founder of an investment house. He also serves as an ambassador for the International March of the Living in the Gulf, and he is based in Dubai. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me today and for speaking to the All Israel News audience.
Thank you for having us.
So I would like to begin our conversation from that very moment that I just described, and honestly has made quite a lot of headlines in the Middle East, especially in Israel. Take us back to your visit to Auschwitz. And I will begin with you, Eitan, because I want to learn, how did you conceive this idea to bring an Emirati lawmaker to the March of the Living? What was the significance of it for you?
The significance started, I suppose, when I launched Neishlos Foundation on the 27th of January, which is International Holocaust Day, in pursuit of tolerance and also in pursuit of peace. And one of the first things we did is that we established a strategic relationship with March of the Living. And together we launched a campaign in London at the House of Lords to pass down the torch from the first generation to the third generation. And there, in front of the Lords and international leaders, we demonstrated to the world that the third generation can lead in reconciliation. Because I was there, a descendant of a Holocaust survivor. Nobuki Sugihara was there, a descendant of Righteous Amongst the Nations. And for the first time in history, a Nazi who was a descendant of a Nazi who was embraced by everyone until there wasn't a dry eye in the room. And that incredible response of reconciliation made me want to extend our mission towards peace as well. Because I've relocated to Dubai, and I'm very proud of the leadership that gifted us the Abraham Accords. And also I was given an honor to light a torch of remembrance at Auschwitz and accept that torch on behalf of the third generation. I couldn't think of any greater honor than to extend that torch to His Excellency Ahmed Almansoori and to share the stage with him. We achieved what we set out to do, to display an unbreakable bond amongst the second and third generation, represented by all of these remarkable people that I described. There is no outcome for bigots, so long as our wall, metaphorically speaking, and our bond is strong, as demonstrated on the sacred grounds of Auschwitz. I entered Auschwitz through the gates of hell with a dear friend who embraced me, and I walked out with a brother, Ahmed.
And Ahmed, let me refer pretty much the same question to you, but I'll divide it into two parts, because I want to hear first, what was the message that you were carrying with you as you were heading to the Auschwitz death camp to visit there? And also, what is the message, or the takeaway rather, that you were taking with you as you went back home? Because, you know, I as someone who took this trip before, I think the last year of my high school, I was 17. I remember that sometimes it takes time for this experience to really sink in. It takes you time to digest what you saw there, what you experienced, and only in retrospect you realize its significance for you.
Thank you very much, Tal, for the question. And for everything, I would like to congratulate Eitan, for his vision. He had a vision that, to make sure that to extend this thing to invitation to invite people from different backgrounds. And it was very important, part of his vision, to capitalize on the peace and the reconciliation and the new Middle East. So by inviting me, I was very honored to be there. And without him, I will never be there, actually. And when I went there, and as you know, before that, a year before that, we established the first Holocaust gallery in the Islamic and Arab world. And that was in April 2021, the Yom HaShoah. And so when I went there, it was a message mainly that, that we are together, and when we talk about peace, it's not only peace at political and economic level or at military or security level. It's a complete peace. It's with compassion, with, feeling for one another. And also, what made us to establish the Holocaust Gallery at the museum. And, it's just because very important to educate people about it, to reintroduce it properly in the MENA region. And that was, a very important message. And it was very important for me to go there and also to show, my commitments, my solidarity. Even I made my speech in Arabic there. And, as a person, who reflects the culture of the United Arab Emirates, the true culture of a sense of the roots of our values as a Muslim, as an Arab, as an Emirati, that, we have to not just take peace partially, we are complete. At the same time, it's very important that, to go there and to show our Jewish brothers and sisters that, we are with them and we do not accept that thing. And, whatever the crime was committed, it was, I have never seen or heard about any crime bigger than that. Unfortunately, in our modern history, it's not something like, long time ago. And it was very important just to be there, in person, with my identity. And I was fasting at that time. It was Ramadan time. Oh. So it was very important, with all prayers. We believe that, prayers in Ramadan, are much more blessed and more can be heard more when you are fasting, sacrificing your time. So that was very important for me. When I came back as a witness, as someone who was there, and because reading something, even making a museum or making a gallery about Holocaust is not enough. And it was very important. And as my Jewish brothers and sisters always say, and the rabbis say, it is not about, the Holocaust is not only about the Jews. It's about all humanity. We are trying to save all humanity to prevent such thing to happen, not to happen again. So, the message, I understood more the meaning of never means never.
So let me just stop you there for a moment. And then just recently you saw the 50 Holocausts, remark made by Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas. And I mean, after being in Auschwitz and actually seeing what the Holocaust sort of was like and gaining another perspective on it, what was your reaction to it?
I have never seen that. Sorry.
When Mahmoud Abbas said he accused Israel, so he recently visited in Germany and he held a shared press conference. And he said that Israel has committed 50 Holocausts against the Palestinians, and now
No, of course, first of all, there's no comparison. You cannot politicize the issue of Holocaust. It is 100%. A historical thing. It happened. It's a crime happened against the Jews and the Jewish people. Of course, others, but it was targeted. It is the biggest war crime, genocide. We cannot, whatever you want to call it. I know that the highest level of crime is war crimes. Whatever was committed, and unfortunately, many nations were involved in it. And it is like really ethnic cleansing thing. But there's no comparison with other things. You cannot compare Holocaust with other things. We are against genocide. We are against anything against that hurts human lives, human lives. But people cannot, I think, use this, the Holocaust, and then try to compare with other things, because political differences, political wars, or whatever the wars between people is not equivalent to that. So whatever happened in Holocaust, I think. There's no equivalent to it as a crime against humanity, which was unfortunately against the Jews. They bear that.
So what you did there in Poland has continuity, this message of coexistence and peace that you want to extend throughout the region. And I understand that you have more initiatives in this line coming up. Can you tell us, Eitan, give us just a taste of what's coming up next?
Absolutely. There's a lot going on. The campaign that I mentioned to you earlier on has had a flow-on effect and a lot of positive outcomes. As a result, I established March of the Living here in the Gulf, and it's the first time that we have a chapter in an Arab and Muslim country. And on Kristallnacht, which is coming up in November, Kristallnacht being the night of broken glasses, when the Nazis initiated a pogrom against the Jews, we hope on that anniversary to bring light to the United Arab Emirates for the first time. and we'll be flying in a Holocaust survivor to initiate for the very first time a Holocaust lecture to students of all religious denominations. Some other projects that we're working on is the restoration of children's shoes at Auschwitz to ensure that Holocaust deniers can never bury the truth. I marched on my feet holding my late grandmother's shoebox in Auschwitz, which Ahmed helped me carry from time to time. And next year, I will return to the March of the Living with an Emirati delegation, and I'll take the steps of life that the children who perished could not.
Mm-hmm.
The shared dream of Neishlos Foundation, and I believe of the Crossroads of Civilization, is to establish Holocaust education programs and together to take this to the new level to ensure that we create a generation of upstanders.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, these wonderful initiatives, these are very exciting and important steps that you are about to take, and we will for sure follow them and cover them. None of that would have been made possible if it wasn't for the groundbreaking Abraham Accords agreements, and we're now marking 2 years to these agreements. And obviously, there's much talk about the increase in bilateral trade and tourism and security cooperation and whatnot. But I want to ask you, what about how does it feel like on the ground in your everyday? How have you been experiencing the Abraham Accords within the past 2 years, Ahmed?
I mean, as you know, that my museum has been open. It has about the life of the Jews in the MENA region since 2012, and went to the public there. And so my experience was mainly meeting my Jewish brothers and sisters, who are coming from different places, or people with dual citizenship. They used to come there from Israel. Once the announcement happened, and from our side, the commitment, was great. So immediately, the visas were issued easily, and we have many groups coming there. And the indicators for the success of this Abraham Accord, an indicator to show that, it's some people, they don't call it peace, they call it reestablishing or establishing diplomatic relationship. Mm-hmm. It shows that, the solidarity is very high. Usually when people, foreigners go to another country, they usually, they stick with each other. But the interesting thing when the Israelis were coming to the UAE, they were mingling with Emiratis very fast. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you have cousins or people who have missed each other for a long time. Suddenly they are rejoining. And, if you look at statistically, the number of the kosher restaurants, in the UAE increasing, comparing to many countries that they have, normal relationship with Israel for a long time. Maybe in the whole great countries, they have 1 or 2 or 3 restaurants. I mean, these are small indicators that shows, the welcoming. People feel home. I was with my friends, here, one of the senior friends here, the vice president of the Jewish community. And, I feel home. I feel home in Dubai, in the UAE, because the embracing, for us, when we talk about tolerance, we talk about embracing, about openness. We have our own word in Arabic, which is, I think, same roots of your word in English, called samah. And we have, tasamuh. Tasamuh, it means, more, it's like embracing, forgiveness, and welcoming, embracing them. Mm-hmm. So, and also, as you mentioned, exactly, Tal, that, the people are moving at all levels, not just at the higher level, and across all levels. And, and the people, our work is the people-to-people level, cultural, because the cultural activities, the events that we are doing, like Jewish events at the museum, the number that we are doing, it all indicators of, of the success of the peace, because we are feeling for one another, we celebrate together, and also we commemorate together for, sad moments. Mm-hmm. So I think it's moving in the right direction. It's very solid. This peace happened between 2 countries, which are very powerful, very strong. They are very small, but very powerful. 2 countries and 2 nations. We love our identity, our values, at the same time as the Jews and the Jewish people. So, and respecting one another, and we appreciate, many things, because we don't want to forget one religion, one God. It's one, the roots of the values stems from the same place. So, we are capitalizing on the positiveness, And we are eliminating all the stereotypes, by our interaction, direct interaction. Before we had mediators between us, and then you have lots of stereotypes and lots of misunderstanding, about each other, misinterpretation. Now things are changing to the best.
And speaking of changes, it's no secret that one of the things that has brought Israel, the UAE, and also Bahrain together is the concept of the enemy of my enemy as my friend. And obviously, I'm referring to Iran here, because as we are speaking here and recording this interview, there is a nuclear deal that seems to be shaping up with Tehran and Washington currently still reviewing the very final draft proposal that was put forward by the European Union. So any moment this deal could be signed. And it reportedly is going to cause much concern to Israel and its regional allies, the UAE, because on one hand, it will not really stop the race to acquire a nuclear bomb on behalf of the regime in Tehran. It will not, affect their malign activities in the region. At the same time, it will also funnel money to the regime and gain it some layer of legitimacy. So I want to ask you, Eitan, how concerned are you about this deal, being Jewish with a connection to Israel and being physically in Dubai, and what you're seeing, what you're hearing around you in regards to that? And will it have any effect if signed on the Abraham Accords?
I'm a businessman, not a politician, but that said, peace equals prosperity. You talk about the enemy of my enemy. But why does Iran have enemies? Of course, there's geopolitical considerations, but I think at the heart of the matter lies a common shared value in peace. And I'm concerned that Iran is not a party to that common value. They've made it very clear, their support of Hezbollah, the support of the Houthis in Yemen. At the end of the day, the Iran deal, whether it's signed or whether it isn't signed, it stands in such contrast to the Abraham Accords, which were signed by the leaders of the United Arab Emirates, by the leaders of Israel in good faith, with trust and a shared belief in a better future. I live in Dubai. I'm a Jew and Israeli in Dubai, and I have trust in the leadership of the United Arab Emirates to do what is right for the region, for Israel, and for the alliance. They have proven their commitment and their loyalty to Israel and to the Jewish people and to the stability and to the prosperity of the region.
Mm-hmm. So Ahmed, I will roll this question on to you because Eitan is talking about the UAE leadership. You are a former politician, and we recently learned that the UAE is set to reopen an embassy in Iran and reinstate an ambassador there. And I saw some interesting data on Reuters that the UAE is now the top exporter to Iran, with bilateral trade rising to $21.4 billion in 4 months from March this year, compared to just $7 billion for the entire of 2019. So how should we be interpreting these moves?
When you talk about politics in the region, as Eitan was saying, about the trust in the leadership, because our leadership, and we are as a country, we are very resilient, and we know what we are doing. And when we take actions, as a sovereign country, we take all of the other measures. The dynamics of the power here is very difficult in the region. So we learned something. When you make wars, you make enemies, but when you get involved in peace, you make more enemies. So we are trying to reduce these things, and we try to exhaust all diplomatic efforts. So there's no excuse for others, not to use diplomatic efforts. If as you know, that we have been coexisting, as the Arabs and the Persians, for thousands of years. We have been the borders for thousands of years, and we know how to deal with each other. And we are hoping, with any diplomatic efforts, people maybe they gain certain knowledge, because as you know that in the UAE, in Dubai and the UAE, we are spearheading development in the Arab world and the Islamic world. And many people, they're learning from us. And I think hopefully if we can, one of the hopes can be, people can, if they want to become responsible international actors, they can learn from us how to become very responsible regional international actors. For the U.S., pushing for the nuclear deal with Iran, and I think Iran is winning whether the U.S. make a deal with them or they are going with the Russian side. So it's very complicated dynamic of the power here. But if there is an opportunity to exhaust other efforts to add value to the stability in the region, I think we should take it. And as a UAE, when we take a decision about making relationship with a country, for example, with Israel, others, no other countries can get involved because this is our sovereign decision in that area. And
so you are not worried that your steps with Iran will jeopardize, put strains on the relationship with Israel?
No one. I mean, they are against it, and and many other countries are against it. We took the decision what's the best interest for the UAE and for the region, because we believe whatever the region is going through the last minimum 7 decades or the last 100 years actually, it's going in the wrong direction, and the confrontation, wars, terrorism, using of violence, these are harming the future generations, and we are very committed to the region, to the stability of the region. And if anybody wants an opportunity to come on board and join and act as a responsible regional international actor and not interfering in the politics of others, they are on board. If you think about it, they are supporting proxies whether in Lebanon, Yemen, and Syria, other places, even in Israel by itself. They are even interfering in the Israelis' politics by these proxies, and nobody is doing anything, because there are other ways of power and nobody's taking action. So confrontation and sanctions sometimes might help or not help. Is there a concern from their side? Yes, we have concerns. We are very concerned, but at the same time we trust our judgment, we trust our capabilities, and I hope they will learn from that. Maybe this will pave the way for more normalization in the region, to show that thing. But they will not affect our politics. They will not affect because it's our decision, and the security is only one minor issue. With the peace with Israel is because these two countries are spearheading development in the region. And I think if we come together with our experience in trade and the region and the Israeli experiences, I think we can do lots of changes, open the door. All what we need to make this peace successful is to have the youth from the region and of other countries understand the benefit of the peace, the future generations. So this is what we need to work on the positive aspect, and we are working towards the future, not towards the past.
So in the future, moving forward, where would you like to see the Israeli-Emirati partnership go? And I'll refer this question to sum it up, this conversation to both of you.
Eitan, you want to go first?
Okay, I was going to offer it to you, but
take it.
I'll take it. Sometimes when we think of the future, I also think of the past. And the Abraham Accords is, of course, named after the biblical patriarch Abraham. And we all know that sons didn't get along and they didn't build a shared future together. And I feel that we can correct this mistake of the past, and we can make sure that our children continue on the path of peace. That means more cooperation. It means more partnership. It means more economic integration, more economic interaction. The future holds so much potential, and I intend to work as a businessman, as a philanthropist, to see much of it realized. And tell thank you to your government, thanks to the US-brokered Abraham Accords and the friendly flow-on foreign investment culture that I am so privileged to enjoy here.
I love this answer with Abraham, and it sounds it's a good, well, hopefully, an analogy that will not fulfill itself. And Ahmed, just really briefly, our audience at All Israel News is mostly Christian. Do you have any message to them?
I would like them to look at the Abraham Accord as a catalyst project for the new Middle East. It's for a change. Abraham Accord is a U.S. initiative, and everyone has to support it also. And it was made by courageous leaders from all three parties, U.S., Israel, and the UAE. And I think it's very important to don't look at it as a short-term initiative, because we are very committed strategically, and we are going full-fledged with that one. And we believe that the future is much better, because mostly I think if you look at historically the real history, not the last 100 years, mostly the Jews and the Arabs, when they were living together, we have pioneers from both sides. We're contributing to the world values during the golden ages. Once we had crack in our relationship, especially the last almost 100 years, the Middle East went down the drainage, so, and we are not, and actually we became more like parasite or depending on other regions. So I think we're coming back, this, and remember, this peace happened during the COVID, during the time of everybody of negativities, everyone was thinking of all negativities, but we broke that negativities with this peace and deal with all challenges. I think we believe we're going to move forward, and I think other countries will join very soon. I think it paves the way for other countries to establish relationships, and it's happening. It's happening gradually, and many countries, they are ready for it. It just takes time, just to make sure that for security reasons or other reasons, that they can make it more solid. We don't want a cold peace. We want like Emirati Israeli peace, which is really genuine peace, and we need the same thing to be replicated. And we are very good in that, and make it this systematic, and so for a better Middle East for all of us. The COVID has proven to us: one world, one destiny. We in the region, we have one region and one destiny also. So I think we're getting that direction.
Amen to that. On that positive note, we will conclude our conversation. Ahmed Obaid Almansoori and Eitan Neishlos, thank you so much for this informative, insightful conversation, and we will keep up the good work. We will continue to follow it. Thank you.
Thank you.